how to spell your name?
T.
C?
T.
T.
It's T.
School name, T-A?
L. I.
B? Thank you very much. And I apologize, I'm working
Taliban?
with
Non Taliban.
500 kids, so I can't know their names.
I thought you're trying to make him use these things. Because he started using the sound and expressions.
Yeah,
Once he did it.
you noticed that. Yeah. And I asked that because I want to ask you, of your classmates, now there's 60 in the class that I'm working with. Do you think everybody has created a story in your class? Do you think they've all told a story to at least a few people in the class? Has everybody told a story who I've asked to in front of the whole class? Has anybody said no? Have I asked shy people to come up and tell stories?
No, not really.
You don't think any of them were shy?
Yeah.
I personally think some of them were shy, but I may be wrong because I don't really know them. I think when they came up, they didn't act shy, but I may be wrong. I may well be wrong. It's a class of 3rd and 4th and 5th graders, so some of them are your classmates. I don't know how many. About 5. Okay. So I'm going to leave this right now. We'll come back to it, but I have to start with this as the foundation. And I think it's important to make the correlation with the lecture mode, which so many people shut down on, because they're not really attending to their audience. And most of them don't realize that. It's not that they're, being grumpy and saying, I'm just going to do it. They just don't know. They haven't delved into it. I was fortunate to learn that in 1984, in actually the first education class I ever took. That's something that we learned, so I've taken it ever since. But it's important for us to realize that. Okay? So, with that, let's move on to this next thing. I had the pleasure of a boat cruise last night, and I met a gentleman named Arsalan. He's a professor here. Does anybody know him? Did you know that gentleman on the cruise that I spoke with?
I saw him.
Yeah. Do you know him, or you just... Okay. He's a highly intelligent man. He was telling me about his research, about what he's developed. It's a very small filament that is so thin and small that you can place it between the iris and the cornea. And it's powered by radio waves. And it measures the pressure of the eyeball. And it's designed for people who are at high risk or starting to have glaucoma, so that a doctor can just go up and read it without it's transmitting. So you can just find out right away where they're at. There's a problem. It's fascinating. So he's telling me this, but he's also wondering about, because he learns what I do, and he wants some ideas and advice on how to take his ideas, how you can take them and better communicate them orally. So we went across this, and it made a lot of sense to me. And I also gave him suggestions on how to do it in print and in text, because I write and I edit and so on like that. I edit other people's work for technical manuals and textbooks and novels and things of that nature. I don't get paid for it. I just do it for friends who write, as they do things for me. But point being that this was important to him, and I told him about this, which I'm about to show you, and it's called a visual portrait of a story. And this is like a piece of paper turned sideways. And it goes like this. It's so simple. Every story you could take, as I had spoken the other night of the first recorded story that we know of, that's recorded in print, the Epic of Gilgamesh, over 4,000 years old. You could take the Iliad, the Odyssey, which are 3,000 years old. You could take any story and look at it in very simple terms. It has 4 parts to it. One is a beginning. The next is the problem. And then the solution. And then the end. Every story will fit that. Occasionally I'll have, maybe 1 out of every 3,000 or 4,000 people, and I'll say, I know of a story that doesn't really have a beginning. Well, it does. No, it doesn't. And it doesn't have an end either. It's just kind of, well, actually, the beginning is where whoever, if it's an oral, it's where they start talking. That's the beginning. Or if it's in print, it's where you start reading the first words. And it ends when the person stops talking or when the print ends. Okay? That's simple. And we will look at that story I did, Raven Day, as if it's a visual portrait, just to give you an idea of that. So I will ask if somebody would be kind enough to tell me what they remembered from the beginning of the story, Raven Day. What happened in the beginning of the story, Raven Day? Yes, sir.
You like to imitate sounds.
Okay. And what? Okay, so hands kind of surreptitiously turn off. Remember the gentleman in the lecture the other night? He just kept going, and I fumbled in my pocket so I could kind of give him an out. Pretended it was me. It was my phone. And finally turned it off and went, there we go. He was a nice guy, in a sense of putting him on the spot. What was the problem in the story? Raven Day. What was the problem in that story? Yes, sir.
You couldn't imitate the raven.
Couldn't imitate the raven. And so tell me, that being the problem, what was the solution to the problem?
You turned into a raven.
And what happened at the very end of the story? What happened at the end of the story, Raven Day? Became a boy again. Now, Talib, just like in the class that you're in, when I did this exercise with them, the different story. Yeah. Not everybody agrees with you on this, Talib. There are those who believe something else is the problem. Okay. For instance, this gentleman right here, he doesn't think that was the problem in the story. Am I correct or incorrect, sir?
I'm a little confused.
Okay.
You transfer to them? Transfer to you?
Yeah.
How did you... I don't know how to express, sorry.
Okay, that's quite all right. I'll ask someone else. But I'm asking, what did you think the problem was in this story? Every story has a problem in it. So, I was thinking you probably didn't think that the problem was that he couldn't make the raven sounds. My guess is